Welcome to the Quantum Leopard podcast. Quantum Leopard is a multi-award-winning, pay what you like, no punching down, no picking on the audience, gender-balanced booking, Central London Saturday night of lovely comedy, and this is its podcast. Every episode will have a recording of a real live set from one of our nights and an interview with the comedy brain behind it. We have videos of full shows up on patreon.com/Quantum Leopard, and that's going to have loads of sets that aren't in the podcast as well. We only charge when new live show videos come out. I'm your host and MC, James Ross, and this is Quantum Leopard. This episode we have wonderful Alastair Clark. This set was recorded on the 30th of March 2024 by Aniruddh Ojha at Bold, and Aniruddh also did the editing. The interview took place on the 2nd of September 2025. Content warnings on this set for hitting children, mental health issues and experience of neurodivergence. Enjoy!
I don't know about you, but I think being alive every day is just a bit much. I'm sick of it. God damn. You know what? I was like, oh, maybe things will get better. No. Remarkably, will they ever? Probably not. We're here. Thanks for having me, James. Yeah, it's nice to be able to come out and do a gig and just say, hey, mental health, because you couldn't do that in the old days, could you? Because they didn't have mental health in the old days. In the old days, they didn't have mental health. No, they just hit their kids. Are you sure? Are you sure you don't have mental health problems? You're using violence against a child, and that's normal. Never did me any harm. Did it not? It looks like it did a lot of harm. It looks like it did you so much harm. Please talk some... I realise there's like a real history of mental health in my family. My great-uncle Jeff died in a plane crash. Yeah, no, what's that got to do with health? Yeah, he died in a plane crash. In a plane he built himself! I found that out 6 months ago. My own great-uncle Jeff died in a plane crash. That's sad. He built the plane himself! What the fuck was he doing? Maybe I just talk to someone. I don't know. Talk therapy. One, it's expensive. Two, I don't think it'd work for me. I don't think talk therapy would work for me. I'll tell you why. Talk therapy wouldn't work for me because my dick's too big. How the fuck is someone who's got a smaller dick than me going to tell me anything about my life? So I'm in a situation now where I'm like, well, if I want a therapist, I've got to get them to send me a dick pic before we start. With a 50p in it for scale. And I think that if your therapist sends you a dick pic before you start therapy, it's a red flag. That is not the kind of person you should be giving money to. As well as all of your deepest, darkest secrets. If they're prepared to do that. It's tough. So I'm going to talk about being an autistic adult. After all, it is one of my niche interests. I found out I had autism in a supermarket. Weird. Always hated the supermarket. I went to this supermarket. And I walked in, and instead of produce, there was clothes. That's not right. I'm already on the back foot. With a mate. We went to the freezer. I was really loud, was really noisy, and the clothes thing had thrown me. So my brain just turned off. Came to in the car park. My friend goes, "What happened there?" I went, "Oh, clothes were in the wrong place, bit loud, bit noisy, brain turned off." He went, "Does that happen a lot?" I go, "Not a lot." They go, "Oh, do you think you might have autism?" I was like, "Me? No. Autism? I'm cool. I can't possibly have autism." And then I read a list of symptoms of autism. And that was my first mistake. I don't know whether you've ever read the list of symptoms for a neurological condition and gone, oh, that's what I thought was my quirks. I thought I was just a cool, quirky guy. Turns out, DSM. Who knew? Who knew? So, yeah, I didn't, so basically, right, if you want to get an NHS diagnosis for autism, first thing you do, go to the GP, and they'll give you a thing called the AQ10, right? And it's 10 questions, and you basically answer them, you go, how much does this trait apply to you? Not at all. A little bit. Quite a lot. Clarky. Right, that's the scale. And I was like, if I am autistic, I'm only going to be a bit autistic, right? I'm not going to be like... So what I'll do is I'll answer it on a scrap piece of paper, and you have to get 7 out of 10 to talk to a psychiatrist. So if I get it wrong, I'll just fudge some answers and, do that. Anyway, first go, no redos. 9 out of 10! The arrogance of the man who thought he needed to do it on a scrap piece of paper. It was hard. I didn't, and I'll be honest with you, I did not want autism. I didn't want it. Right? I'm all right with it now, but I didn't, it was a hard thing to consider. And these are the 2 reasons I didn't want to have autism. 1, I thought no one would want to fuck me anymore. And you're going, Al, it's not the autism. It's the misery. It's not a good look on you. Reason 2 is I thought I wouldn't be cool anymore. Now, you're going, are you really that worried about being cool? Yes. I wasn't a cool child. I'm a fucking cool adult, right? Right? I do stand-up comedy, yeah? I'm good at it. That's cool, right? Right, guys? My day job, right? I work in a record shop. Yeah? I have got no prospects, but I got that, it's cool. I got a facial piercing in my 30s. It's all I've got. If I lose that, I'm fucked. I was telling my friends, and they all said the same thing. They'll go, oh, I might have autism. They go, oh, that would make a lot of sense. You fucking pricks, what do you tell me? Leave me 31 years to work this out on my own. And you sort of look back and you do have that sort of thing when you realise something like that and you go, oh, how would my life have been different if I'd known? And I think that I'm in a relationship now, it's really good. Hopefully that keeps going. Because I do not want to be alone again. So I was really honest with her from the start about the autism thing. And I think that's sort of why it's so good. We met at a gig, not one of mine, wasn't. Right? We went to see a band, right? We went with I went my own, autism, right? and she was there with some friends of mine. And then I met her, and then but we were friends, so it was just meeting each other. And then she's like, when you have a one-night stand with someone, don't you have to kiss them before you leave the place to have a one-night stand? I thought that was the pattern, but anyway. So too much of a laugh there, mate. Gave yourself away. Right. So anyway, we haven't kissed. It's a dangerous part of town. It's completely innocently, right? I'm like, I'll walk you home. I didn't know she was a dick-hungry maniac, right? So I'm there, and I'm telling her about how I gave up smoking, right? Alan Carr's Very Easy Way to Stop Smoking. If you want to stop, I recommend the book. Right? Best book I've ever read for stopping smoking. As a narrative, it's poor. Anyway. So I'm telling her how to stop smoking, and she seems very interested for someone who, 1, doesn't smoke, and 2, has no intention of starting. But I guess it's just good facts for life, isn't it, I guess? So anyway, we get outside her flat, and she's like, oh, do you want to carry on telling me about this upstairs? I go, well, to be honest, I was just about wrapping up, but... I guess she might have some follow-up questions, so yeah, sure. So we're in a flat, right? And then we start kissing. I go, oh, cool, sex, nice. This is nice. Yeah. Oh, I know what I'm doing now. This is cool. And then, right, it was quite new. It was like I'd just done the form for the NHS, and I was like, you know what, Al? Somewhere in my head, right, my brain goes, you need to tell her you've got autism. I'm like, really? Now doesn't seem like an opportunity. seems less than ideal to do this now. No, you've got to. Because of my internalised ableism, right, I was like, there is a consent issue here, yeah? She needs to know that she's consenting to sleep with an autistic adult. Right? That is fucked! But that's my brain, right? You don't have to fucking live in it. So I'm there. I'm going, you got to tell you got autism, you got to tell you got autism, you got to tell you got autism. Right, the longer I don't do it, the worse it's going to get, right? So anyway, she's sat on top of me, her top's off, her tits are in my face, and I go, I might have autism. Which is proof, isn't it? Gotta be top 3 most autistic things that have ever happened. And do you know what she said? She said, that's hot, fuck my mouth. She didn't. She didn't say that. But she might as well have done. Right. You guys were fucking lovely. Nice one. Cheers.
And there we go. And that was Al Clark. Al, thanks for a lovely set. I really, really enjoyed that. So, opening with despair at the idea of constantly being alive is quite a bold choice for an opening statement. So it's a very strong icebreaker, which leads me to your main early topic of mental health. And I think I want to know about Uncle Jeff. So this sounds like the tip of the iceberg of a much larger narrative. So what's Jeff's story, and like how did you find out about that?
Like, that's a great one-liner, but it obviously turned out being a whole sketch. But that is absolutely true. That is what happened. But I'd always thought that he died in a passenger air crash, which happened to my other great aunt on my mum's side. And I sort of was talking to my dad one day. I went, yeah, it's mad that like 2 of my great sort of I don't know what's the word for aunt and uncles? Is there one? Uncles?
Sure, why not? Yeah,
I don't know.
Weird that should be congenital, really, isn't it? Dying in a plane crash. Like, that's not something you expect to run in families.
And then my dad just went, well, he did build the plane himself. And I went, what? And like, I'd never heard this. And like, I did that bit in Edinburgh, and my cousin came, and I was like, did you know about this, about Uncle Jeff and this? And he was like, no, I just thought he died in a plane crash. Because everyone's just said, oh, he died in a plane crash. No one mentioned that he'd moved to Australia, built himself a plane, and died smashing it into the ground.
I mean, you know, the internet would obviously say, like, you know, men will move to Australia and build a plane before they'll go to therapy, right? Which I feel is, you know, that's the very sort of simplistic reading of that. So, like, when did this happen? Is this like what decade are we talking? So, give us the visual here.
I don't actually know. I suspect kind of like obviously I think my dad knew him quite well before he moved. I think it was probably the sort of 70s or 80s, I suspect. Certainly before I was born. And I was born in 1990. So, but he was a bit of a daredevil. He used to race motorcycles. He's a road racer. Like, it kind of checks out. In the bit now, I say he was a civil servant. He had no business doing it, but that's not quite true. I mean, he was an engineer and, like, you know, did very well. You know, I think he came second in the Manx Grand Prix on the Isle of Man one year. So, you know, he was a pretty serious road racer. Yeah. And they don't tend to live very long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a lot of thrill-seeking behaviour. I mean, you talk a lot about your own neurodivergence and its effect on your behaviour, like later in the set, and about how, you know, a lot of your personality is kind of, you know, when you think about it, is defined by that neurodivergence. Are you retrospectively diagnosing Great Uncle Jeff with you know, the kinds of neurodivergence that might lead to that sort of like thrill and sensation-seeking behaviour?
I mean, it's one of those things where I do suspect it runs pretty strong in my family. You know, we're all, without wanting to diagnose anyone who's, you know, in my family that hasn't yet sort of gone down that road. I do think we're all kind of a bit on those, you know, on those tracks, shall we say.
Yeah, but it's not entirely, like, you know, I dare say it's something that can be activated or amplified by environment and upbringing, right? But it's not like, you know, a certain percentage of people are randomly visited by the autism fairy or something like that, you know?
No, that's it. So I think I'd say it's pretty autistic to go and build a plane.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that's fair. You know, yeah, so I mean, but obviously I never met him, which is sort of one of those things where it's like, you know, it's sort of but this is the thing, like I worry with that bit because I do it and I think people watch it and go, oh, that's not real, Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not a comedian that can go, oh, wouldn't it be funny if? Like, everything I do is observed. It's an observation. Like, I'm not someone who can speculate necessarily. Everything is rooted in observation. Because I think my brain just has no interest in it if it's not true, which again, think on the autism as you want. But
I was going to say, I mean, you've got a singular focus and a dedication to the truth there. But I kind of want to sort of skip ahead a little bit. So, I mean, when you're talking about your sort of, it sounds from the set that your post-diagnosis, you're attributing a lot of your eccentricities to the autism, and I think this sounds a lot like what you're doing there. So, I want to know, like, do you attribute like all of your eccentricities to the autism? Some of them, like, do you feel that your individuality has been undermined by the idea that some of those things that make you who you are to some extent clinical, right? Like, if you take away the autism, what is the irreducible Al Clark that's left after that?
I think that it's a fairly common observation among people who discover they're neurodivergent late that you thought that you were doing it the same way everyone else was for the whole time, and it doesn't really, and that kind of revelation is quite difficult. Just when we're talking about this, I think it's probably important to say that I'm an undiagnosed autist. I've been diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. I haven't been diagnosed with OCD, but when I met my basically, I was doing all this around the same time as going for ADHD diagnosis. And when I eventually managed to get to see a doctor, which I did through the Right to Choose, which is a policy with its own problems, which is basically where the NHS pays for your private treatment, which I thought it made sense to pursue a diagnosis in ADHD because it would give me access to medication that would help my life, which I wouldn't realise that years later I wouldn't be able to get access to simply because there wasn't any left. So I had a few years that were medicated and they were amazing, and now I'm not medicated again, and it sucks. But with the autism thing, like, that was at the same time, and I sort of was like, they said, well, you can do Right to Choose for that. And when I met my psychiatrist about the ADHD thing, when I finally got through, I said, before we met, I sent her over my AQ10, my AQ50, which are the two sort of first two autism charts, and she was like, you could pursue it if you wanted, but like, I'm happy to say that you've got it now, but I can't officially say it because that's not what we're here for. But like, if you want to pursue it, you can. I just sort of thought, well, what's the utility in that? Because I've already used a lot of NHS money to get this ADHD diagnosis. It feels a bit redundant. Like this, they can't medicate against this. So I didn't think it was really worth pursuing diagnosis. And I think it's important to say that diagnosis is like a kind of, I think it's a privileged thing to be able to even get, and it doesn't mean that you don't have it just because you've not been diagnosed. And I think that like that's something that I would want to talk about on stage if I thought it was in any way funny. But I don't think it is. I think, the way I've always said to people, I said, well, you don't need a doctor to tell you you've got a broken leg if there's a bone sticking out of your shin. You do need a doctor to do something about it, right? But with autism, that's not something they can do. I'm high functioning. Some people, they do need the help. I don't. But I still think it's an important thing to talk about. I mean, like, it's one of those things, I talk about it less on stage now. I mean, it was in my Club 20 for a while, this bit. And I think that it's like, it was quite important for me to do it. But also, really, I picked it for this gig because I knew that the audience would like it. I knew it ends on a massive joke. And I knew that it was stuff they'd relate to. It's
about neurodivergence, and it's a bit sexy as well, and it shows you being vulnerable, and you are your own unreliable narrator throughout the story, which is very endearing because it demonstrates vulnerability and self-awareness, right? So that's tick, tick, tick as far as the Quantum Leopard audience is concerned. I mean, talking about an autism diagnosis, so the functionality of an ADHD diagnosis is you can then get treated for the ADHD. The functionality of an autism diagnosis is, you now know why you like train so much, right? Which is like fine and reasonable. But circling back a little bit to the sort of the question of autism versus your individuality. I mean, given your eccentricities being as rooted in the autism as they are, is that something that, if there were like an autism treatment in inverted commas, is that something that you would want? I ask this in as value neutral a way as I can.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair enough. I mean, I don't think it makes sense, because I think it's like, ADHD comes with like actual problems of like executive dysfunction and mood regulation, and like, I mean, obviously autism's got that as well, but like it's you know, I think the thing is when you're comorbid, which so many people are, like it's quite hard to work out what is what, right? Like, you know, what's causing what.
You've only been inside one brain, so you've got a sample size of one in terms of working out which bits tie to which other bits. Yeah.
Would I rather have access to methylphenidate? Yes, absolutely. I don't know if there's anything else more than that. I think what the reason why the autism diagnosis helps, or self-diagnosing, or accepting you've got autism, whatever it is for you, is that it gives you a framework to understand why the world works differently for you and why you are the way you are, and that's the big relief, and that's the good thing about it, and that's why I think, you know, it was important for me to talk about it for a bit, because I think it, you know.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was really interested to, when you were talking about your, you know, the benefit of the autism diagnosis being a sort of a realization of, yes, this is why I'm like this, and having that sort of that epiphanic moment. I mean, it's fascinating to me as somebody who, you know, is not blessed with as easy explicable a brain. You know, that's the kind of like self insight and self realization that I would, I mean, not kill for, but maybe like assault or burgle for, perhaps, you know, something a little bit further down the schedule of offences. I mean, in some ways, I greatly envy people who've got that sort of that opportunity for self-discovery. You know, you can have a Damascene moment and discover who you are. You know, don't get me wrong, it comes with a lot of, you know, society is not necessarily built for people who are, you know, have a particular, you know, brain flavour or a particular sort of identity. But, you know, at least it provides some answers in a way that I think, you know, it's, and also a community of support these days that is accessible in a way that is perhaps not as available for, you know, in my case, more or less neurotypical, you know, straight cis men, you know. So which is, you know, obviously it's, you know, terribly hard for us, you know, he says, ironically putting a hand to his forehead and sniffing the vapours. But, you know, it's hard not to be envious of that from the outside on some level, while appreciating that, you know, that is very much a mixed bag for people who are actually experiencing it. So I wanted to talk about some of the other bits of the set. So I was really interested about the dick measuring against your therapist bit. So my assumption, you know, my reading of this bit is, so I'm operating on the assumption here that this is a criticism of fragile and toxic masculinity in the face of discussing feelings. So firstly, I want to check, you know, is that a correct reading?
100%.
Good, thank goodness for that. All right, because I mean, like, one of the things that I think you do quite well is, you know, you sort of you bring people on board. You like, you know, you're assuring people that you're a sort of safe pair of hands. You're not, you know, one of quote unquote those men, and then you do have the little the flashes of the sort of I think what could be viewed as, like, you know, pseudo-ironic misogyny in terms of you know, things like the sort of the cruder comments later on, but they only work because you're undercutting something you've already established by, you know, talking about feelings and, you know, establishing early on that's kind of the platform that you're working from.
But that's the thing. So it's like essentially that is just men don't talk about their feelings. And I think that it's one of those things, like with Quantum Leopard, as I said at the time, like earlier, was like, you know, I'm just trying to keep people's attention. Like, I don't, like, I'm happy to, I know there's a line, and that line is sacred, and I will not cross it. But it wouldn't be me to not be playful and be like, oh, well, there's a line. Am I? You know, like, and not, and obviously it's important to make everyone feel safe when you're doing that, because I had a really great review once of that show, actually, that show that the Then Turner Film Shelf show said his rooms are a safe space, but his comedy isn't safe. And I was like, that is so perfect, because like I really, like, it's like, I think there's something about when you're on stage, it's like, you know, I want to be playful, I want to be mischievous. You know, that's like a big part of me. And I think that there's a thing with like, you know, like that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, when I'm with my mates, we understand the shared context of everything, right? Now, I'm not going to say anything like, you know, abhorrent on stage, or you know, and there are lines I won't cross. But I think it's like one of those things where, like, if we're all mates and we're all pals, we know when we're joking. And I think that's the problem with these edgelords, is that they don't make it clear when they're joking. It makes it clear that this is what they think. They present it as fact, right? Which I think is, I think that's a real problem.
I mean, ironically, it's the autistic comedian that's got a better sense and awareness of social cues, which I think is, it's an important lesson. I mean, the comedians I think that do best at QL are the ones who accept the ethos. They're on board with what we're doing. They're on board with the rules of the gig, but they do play around with them, right? Lots of people do. Like far better than you would necessarily expect. They're not necessarily, the sort of the core demographic you would expect, or a range of the core demographics that you would expect the audience to be naturally sympathetic to. But they accept the premise of what's going on and they play with it and they play with the boundaries, right? And that's what's fun about it, because it's like being on a roller coaster. You know what I mean? The roller coaster is dangerous and exciting because it simulates, danger, and it's close to being actually dangerous. But ultimately that things are well maintained and you're in the hands of I was going to say, well-paid professionals. In this case, it's circus people who run the fairground. But that's what the thrill is. You'll be taken on the journey, but it's not going to be, unpleasant and jarring. I think ultimately that's not what people want on a night out at the comedy. And you can certainly get very challenging experiences, very challenging topics discussed. As this set is a good example of that. Without it having to devolve into really crude shock humour, and also because ultimately, like once you've done something that's really shocking, you can't really come back from that, right? Like once you've really broken the taboo, you've broken the mood, it's gone, right? You can't piece that back together and build further with it.
Exactly. I think that science kind of speaks to a sort of wider thing as well with like comedy generally and like performance generally. Is that you are, at the end of the day, we're talking about like the set, and we're talking about like how I feel about my work and how and what the meat and potatoes of the material is. But like we need to remember that this is the context of this gig is that there's like probably less than 100 people in a room, and the idea is it's on me for 10 minutes to make sure they have a good time, and it's like. And that's every gig. Every gig is that. Every gig is, okay, cool, it's my job to make sure you have a good time. Now, it's like, but that group of people are never going to be there again. Like, that's it. That's the one time we're all going to be there. So you kind of want it to feel special and feel like we're a gang. That's how I that's how I sort of approach audiences. And I think that's why, I'm sort of like, hey, come on, let's listen to this. It'll be fun, rather than be like, pow pow, I'm more let's have a little chuckle,
This is sort of a common sort of social technique of in-group bonding, right? Is like you share a degree of controlled taboo breaking in order to solidify the in-group around that subverted taboo, which I think is core to performance and community building and all sorts of interpersonal interaction, and ultimately what makes us mammals and therefore better than lizards and robots. Anyway, so I want to ask about how, so you talk about this quite a lot, but like outside of the context of the set, like how has the autism diagnosis affected your romantic life? So, you hint at it in this story, which I assume is more or less accurate from what you've said. But has that had like a wider impact on, the relationship as a whole, on the quality of relationships? How's that looking for you?
Well, I genuinely think like it kind of all came out around the time. This was all happening around the time that I met my partner. Yeah. And we're still together. So I think it's a very, like, I think it helped. I think it was a big leveler early on. I think also it's like, because, she was having a one night stand with someone, it was, who then, a very inopportune moment, confessed that they were having worries about pending autism, potential diagnosis. I think it kind of made her feel very safe. I think she was like, "Oh, this man was not expecting this to happen. He is here by accident." And I think
it's also demonstrated that if he was going to lie to me, then he's not going to do it very well. I think as well, which is helpful.
Yeah, that's it. So I think it was like, and honestly, like neither of us were looking for a relationship. And I think that it was just one of those things where it was like, "Oh, this is fun. We'll keep doing this," and then 3 and a bit years later, we live together and we just got a cat. So it's today. So so we're in that spot where it's like I think it certainly helped me a lot. I mean, I've had like fairly big relationships in the past that have all kind of ended one way or another. And this was the first one where I don't know, it's sort of hard because when you're in them you go, oh, this is it. But I think like I sort of knew pretty early on, I was like, oh, this isn't like the other ones. Yeah. Like this is a bit different. And obviously every relationship's different, but this one. So I think it did help. It certainly helped that I knew that about myself and I understood these things and I could sort of, explain why. And also the ADHD being unmedicated. I mean, that was a big thing in previous relationships. Like, well, why haven't you done the dishes? It's like, because I had to watch 10 episodes of The Wire because that's all I could do, Like,
to be fair, it is an absolute classic. That is ADHD and being really into The Wire. Like, it's the golden age of television. Those are very clear comorbidities. That's very recognisable.
Yeah, well, that's it. So it's like, and I couldn't really explain. I remember being in a relationship in the past, being like, "Are you listening to me?" And me just repeat, "Yeah, that's been my whole life. Are you still listening? Are you listening? Do you hear what I said?" And then you learn to parrot the last few words said. As if you go, well, actually, I was listening, but I wasn't. And it's like, oh, it really annoys me when you do that. It's like, well, yeah, but that's not like I wouldn't be doing it if I could help it,
Yeah.
So all those things didn't come up because it's like, oh, well, you understand the framework to which I'm working in, you know.
I mean, it sounds to me like this is almost the sort of the mirror image of the issues around individuality and autism, right? Like, in the same way that you've got your, the potentially glass half empty way of viewing that is, okay, well, a lot of my quirks that make me fun, interesting and cute and just who I am are related to, this particular diagnosis. It's like the flip side of that is the ADHD one of like, okay, well, here are a lot of the qualities that might make me a less reliable partner, and actually they are attributed to an untreated diagnosis as well. And that you can balance these things out, but if you are aware of them, the general self-knowledge I think makes you a better A person and B partner.
Yeah, well, I think it's like the thing is, it's like I think being aware of something is like for instance the not being able to concentrate on what people are saying thing, and like that being turned on you, it doesn't make you a bad person because you do it.
Yeah.
You feel like it does. Like all that, your whole life, you feel like a bad person because you're not tidy, because you're not punctual. Yeah. Because you don't listen. Like you internalize that, and ultimately, like it makes sense. Like if you're with a partner and you're doing all that stuff, it would be super annoying.
Oh yeah, this is very definitely why I said unreliable rather than bad, right?
Yeah.
Which are, two very different things.
But that's it. But you do feel like a bad partner and a bad person. For not being able to do what other people can do so normally. And you go, how's everyone else doing this, And you realise, and then once you understand all of that, it's like, then the other person has a framework in which to be compassionate because they understand that this isn't something you're doing on purpose. Or even my previous partners knew I wasn't doing it on purpose, but it still annoyed them, which I totally get. Like, I've had partners I'm pretty sure who've had some neurodivergent traits before I realised that, and that annoyed me. It's like, why can't we make a meal without using every pot in the kitchen? Now I've got buckets of washing up to do. And it's like, that's the thing. You don't understand it because you're not looking for it. You don't understand the framework. So I think I think in terms of how it's helped my romantic life, it's like literally it's probably like, well, we've not got a massive sample size and we're probably never going to, but I think it has helped.
That's very sweet. That's really, really nice. I'm really pleased with you, mate. Yeah. Cool. All right, cool. So thanks so much for that, Al. That was a really, really lovely chat and a great set. If people want to catch up with you and your stuff, what have you got to plug?
So hit me up on Instagram at Alastair Clark Comedy. I've got a new show that I did this year at the Fringe called On the Record, which I'll hopefully be touring and doing in record shops. Really fun show. Come see that. I've also got a film I'm making called Nick Garry Lost and Found. It's a singer-songwriter documentary about a guy called Nick Garry, which is really cool. I also run nights in Liverpool under Dead Funny Comedy. If you hit me up on Instagram, it'll all be there.
Lovely stuff. Excellent. Thanks so much, Al. Love to speak to you. See you in a bit. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Catch you later. Bye.
That was the Quantum Leopard podcast. If you want to catch a live show in London, look us up at linktree /Quantum Leopard to sign up to the mailing list. We will never take advertising because advertising is cultural poison, but from each according to their ability to each according to their need. So if you're enjoying our guests in your ears, but would like them in your eyes as well, we have videos of whole shows up on patreon.com/Quantum Leopard. We only charge when a new live show video comes out. If you enjoyed the show, why not give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice and or share this episode on the socials. Editing was by Rhys Lawton, who is conventionally attractive and fun at parties. Music was composed and produced by Rooks Production Services at I Am Rooks on the socials. That's Rooks with an E. The Quantum Leopard podcast is distributed and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 international license, which means you can share it as much as you like, but don't change it or sell it in any way because I will find out where you live. Kind love and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you everyone for listening today, and thank you especially to our top tier patrons who we could not do this without you. The wonderful Gareth, the brilliant Jenny, the incredible Kate, Niblick, whose glory is brighter than a billion suns, Richard, who makes angels weep, Terry, who's just so superb that those who gaze upon them weep at their loveliness, and also another Richard. We've got 2 Richards. We've got 2 Richards who are our top tier patrons. What a delight. Thank you so much. We genuinely could not do this without you. You're the best. Okay, bye.